Anya, you're very, very welcome to the podcast. We just had a little chat before we began recording, and I said I'd give you a cue to let me know if you get bored at any point in the podcast. But I have no sense that that's going to happen. We're not going to get bored in this podcast, are we?
No, far too much to talk about.
Lots to talk about. So we're recording this in summertime. We're like in the thick of it. It's a very busy time, obviously, for art. Anyone I know in the arts is like, touring or performing, or it's a busy time in life as well. And then obviously for parents, it's, there's all the jigs and reels and going on. So I'm guessing there's elements of all of that for you at the moment, is there?
Absolutely. Yeah, but I'm trying to rope kids in now for the band Kilfenora Roadshow.
Well, you're going full Footsbarn and family kind of.
Sure, look, they're there anyway, and I either have to give half my wages to a babysitter, or they can get up on stage.
Well, there is a kind of long-standing tradition of like family theatrical outfits and bands and all sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. You just wonder, like, you don't want to turn into the dance mom, the really intense, like, let's practice now and let's do that. And at the same time, you're trying to teach them the discipline of the performance, I want them to see my world as well, so they know what I'm working towards and what I'm doing. And because when you're an artist like me, it's from project to project, so it's really intense, and they need to know that's why I get to spend time with them at home.
Yeah.
So do these intense sections, like for a week, they'll barely see me. I'll be in the house, but I'll be running around doing my And then there's the show at the end. So I'm enjoying teaching them that whole element, and also there's potential for earning stuff,
Yeah.
So they can earn credit, they can earn money, whatever it is, to teach them that, like, playing music and practicing or performing or practicing or dancing, that there is a result at the end of that for them as well.
Lovely. When you say you want to show them your world and what you're working towards, like you've kind of described some aspects of that, but for those that don't know you, can you maybe paint a bigger picture of what your world encompasses? What type of disciplines, what type of activities, what type of performances are you involved in at the moment?
Yeah, well, it changes all the time, but about 4 years ago I got involved in conceptual art with Her Story and Melanie Lynch, working with Miriam Riand, the photographer. So those kind of shows or those kind of things, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in the home place for the children, where I'll have costumes in the sitting room and we'll be doing headpieces, and there'll be photographers around and they have to learn to be quiet, and and there's all that. And then with the band work or the theatre work, then we'll be in halls for a week rehearsing, trying things out, working on music. There could be 20 musicians in the sitting room, so they just need to know that, like, I'm trying to teach them, like, how to be in the space, but also be respectful of the adults. So but my work changes all the time. Sure, I don't know what I'll be doing from one day to the next, or one project to the next.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I also work with children as well, and I do workshops, and I do stuff for Creative every year. I've done a few films for children, and in that kind of stuff, they can get involved, really involved. Like some jobs I get offered to come in and do workshops. I'll ask if I can bring my children with me. So they're brilliant. Children are the best. They're so, like, as artists go, children, they're not afraid of themselves yet. Like, they'll try anything, or their ideas are just really fresh. So I love working with children. And even with my own stuff, like, I'll always get my stories from telling stories to the kids, my own children, So it doesn't in my life.
When you say that's a really powerful kind of line that you said there. They're not afraid of them. Excuse me. Children aren't afraid of themselves yet. That implies that, at some point we lose this magic or this creative spark, or many people do at least. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, so I suppose just from being a mum of 3 girls now and watching them, it's not until they're about 7 that they start becoming aware that they're an individual, or that they can be judged, or given a title. Like, some people are given permission to be an artist, and others have to fight for it, and most of us end up not being artists because of the fight, or the belief that's instilled on us, or bestowed on us. So yeah, and working with kids, I don't know. It opens up that in me, that, you can just go outside and create something out of nothing. I'm a real believer in that, is that you have to let the flow happen, and continue to say yes, which is something that we learned in theatre. If you're improving with somebody, you always say yes to what's happening, and children naturally do that. So if I was like, okay, we're in a fire station now, children will go, yeah, we're in a fire station. But an adult will go, what kind of fire station and why are we there? It's a no is the answer from an adult. So yeah, but even as an artist myself, like, it took me it was a long journey to kind of come back to kind of go, I'm an artist. I'd say I was in my 20s before I realized fully that this is what I am, and this is the road I'm going to have to go on, whichever way it opens up to me, But yeah, I would have always been a dancer, a singer, musicals in school and all the rest of it. But yes, the titling of yourself as an adult is it's a difficult one for most.
As an artist, yeah. Well, when you say there, like in your 20s, and there was some kind of realization where you said, this is the road I'm going to have to go on, like that suggests sort of like compulsion, like there was no choice.
No choice.
Yeah.
I tried. I studied art and I studied drama. I tried to become a nurse when I was 19 as well. I was like, go down that road of like, being responsible. And I always ended up hanging out with artists or musicians or performers. And they'd always say to me, you're in the wrong course. You're supposed to be studying drama with us. So there was always these like lovely green flags along the way. But yeah, when I hit around 28, I just realized that I'm just going to have to do this completely, because I tried to go and work in an office. I went to work at a radio station, Q102 in Dublin. And I was sitting there and I thought I'd be in this creative role, writing ads and things like that. But I was just selling stuff. I was just selling ads. And I was sitting in this office and I realized that everybody in there was bored. Most people were on Facebook whilst they were working. And when the boss would go by, they'd flick back onto their whatever they're supposed to be doing, And it just, it didn't suit me. There wasn't enough work, strangely enough, which is weird.
Yeah.
But
I feel like we need to do some kind of disclaimer here for the staff at Q.
Oh no,
whatever.
No, all opposites are like
that was their, like, the previous staff, the current staff.
No, it was incredible. And when I would talk to the CEO at the time, like, I was so inspired by his story and what he was doing, and but the fact of the matter is that radio stations rely on advertising.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They need advertising to work, whereas I was more in the, like, I want to create ads, or I want to be on the radio, or I want to, just something like that. But yeah, so going back to like your work ethic and stuff, a lot of artists, they love working really, really hard and really, really long hours, and really intense, whereas an office worker they're able to kind of go along like at a lower pace for longer.
Yeah.
I'm more of an intense worker. I love like loads of work where I'm up really early and I'm working all day and, for 3 days or something, or for a week. And I just love that. That's
Would you have liked your own show at that time?
So I tried to do, it was in Dublin, and I speak like this. So it wasn't really the voice they were looking for. I tried a few of the ads, and I was an actor. I was an actress, in Dublin. I was trying to get ads and stuff, and I just don't have the face for the Dublin media.
So you're saying like your kind of Western accent would impinge a sort of a, I suppose, we won't get too far into that because like ultimately national radio or mainstream, certainly East Coast radio, it's quite, there is quite a bland accent there as well.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been blander at times, but I've been living in Clare now for nine years.
Yeah.
So it's definitely back. But
Yeah, no offense to all the bland people. I feel like I need to apologize. I'm probably a bit bland. I think I'm like I'm anyway. I won't get into a whole conversation about accents, but it's fascinating territory, isn't it?
it is, and even myself, when I hear my voice, sometimes I'm like, oh my God. But like,
Yeah.
there's definitely more accents in Ireland, way before TV.
Ah, yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. Anyway, I feel like I want to go through some kind of confessional on all this, but I won't use
Fair
this space. What? Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to you and beyond accents and take me back to the 7-year-old you. At this point that you're forming your identity, and who were you around? Where were you? What were the influences? What was the community like?
So, so I suppose at 7, so yeah, I was in a very, very hardworking family. It was, we ran the Aran Island ferries. We were always working. I'd say I started working as around 7. I started working.
Wow.
Yeah. So, about the age of 7, we had a B&B and we had the business. And I would have been, we had houses that we were renting out. So I would have been cleaning toilets and from about the age of 7. So there's definitely been a family work ethic that has been instilled in me from that age. I understood what hard work was from the age of 7. And then my mom was amazing. Like, she would have sent us all to piano, singing lessons, I learned cello as well for 4 years. Horse riding, like, swimming. I was in a swimming club. Like, I was constantly on the go. But I wasn't sure. To be honest, what I was at. I was just doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
The piano and all the grades and all that crack. Didn't have any traditional music. And that was a decision that my parents made because my father would have grown up in, or been in Doolin in the 80s, and most of the musicians, the trad musicians, were paid in pints. So, so his theory was that, like, if we don't learn traditional instruments, we won't end up in the pubs. How wrong he was. So I ended up in the pubs all right eventually, but I had nothing to do but drink. So that was the story with the trad music. But I always loved art. I had a lovely aunt who always encouraged me. My father's sister, Pauline. And every time she came by the house, she was like, "What are you drawing now?" Or "What are you doing?" Or "You're so amazing." We wouldn't really have. I think they always thought, like, work is better than being an artist at home. It wasn't ever seen as a way to make money. It was. I don't know, was it like, I don't know why they were doing it, to be honest. I think with my mom was really into the arts and music, but yeah, 7, then 10, at the age of 10, then I got a lot of confidence and a lot of independence because of the ferries, so I would have been answering phones on the ferries and meeting people from all over the world. And we would have gone out to the Aran Islands for, I'd say, 2 weeks at a time on my own, to work in a B&B over there and learn Irish, from the age of 10. Like, it's just, I was definitely given a lot of confidence to be myself, which was an incredible thing. But yeah, I don't think I really found my art until, like I was saying, in my 20s, really fully. But yeah, I'm so many tangents there. I've been brought back to the Aran Islands now and to the Irish, and to my mum driving me up and down to Ennis every day of the week, or dancing, or
that sort of when things sort of seem to consolidate then around your early 20s. What might have been the driving forces there? What were there kind of experiences that or encounters that just really sort of propelled things into much clearer kind of focus?
So yeah, I suppose growing up in Ireland, and like I was saying about the pubs, and you end up in the kind of culture, the pub culture, from the age of whatever age you start drinking. So for me, I was very late blooming. So I'd say I didn't really start drinking until I was about 17. And
I kind of knew that was coming in a way, but like this is such a culturally Irish conversation when someone says I was very late starting to drink. I was 16, 17. But like
it was like
yeah,
we were drinking earlier, you know.
I know. Yeah,
I wasn't that interested. I was more interested in going to the teenage disco and dancing, but they were all into getting drunk and puking.
Yeah.
As you know. Yeah. Anyway, so because of my confidence, I didn't feel I had to do that.
Yeah. So it spared you a couple of years of
absolutely, yeah. But then when I got there, I just did what they, you know.
Yeah.
But this is a very important part of my journey. Is that when I hit about 20 and I was looking around all these pubs and I realized that the people that were drinking with us were in their 30s and they were still sitting at the bar, still sitting with us who were like, you know, 19, 20, whatever. And I was just like, this makes no sense. Like, I don't really want to be them, you know? So I decided I'm just going to stop drinking and see what happens. So I think it was like 2 months before my 21st birthday. I was like, that's it, no drinking. And then I was completely lost because it's popular now to be sober, you know, like it's kind of like it's recognized that it's okay to be sober.
Yeah.
Well, there's cultural events for sobriety or whatever, and you know, zero Guinness. That just wasn't an option back in my time. Which I don't know what year this was now. I'm 39 now, so it's a good while ago. But yeah, so I was left out of everything. I was left out of absolutely everything. And I bumped into this guy who I really, to this day, I believe has saved my life. Ogie Doyle. This is Martin Doyle's son. And I bumped into him. I was 21 then at that stage. And he came into my house one day and there was a cello sitting like up on the wall, like above the press. And he was like, what's the cello doing? Like just sitting there. And I was like, oh, I used to play. And he's like, will you play it now? And I was like, I've no sheet music, you know, the classic. And he was like, well, you can play music by ear. And I was just blown away by this. This never entered my head at all. I was like, what? You mean you can just sit with an instrument and like explore it? This is a whole new thing for me. So he encouraged me to kind of go back to my music and go back to my art. He introduced me to free diving, brought me like swimming. I was like exploring all the Burren. I was finding parts of my county I had never seen before. And this guy was coming from Wicklow and with new eyes, new perspective on Doolin, County Clare, you know. And there I was, like fresh as a daisy, playing music and singing. And before I knew it, I was in this improv band with Davy Spillane on the electric guitar, and I would just rock up every week to Flanagan's on a Friday and just improv my way through an hour. It was bizarre. It was bizarre. So that was my first experience of being in a band. And then I understood that you can get paid for this. And that you can work on this and you can find your voice, you know. And so that was the start of the music kind of creeping back into my life. And I was, so grateful. I'm forever grateful to Ogie for that. For just bringing me back to my 7-year-old self.
It's amazing the influence, like one person. Yeah,
amazing. It's really was. It was such an incredible experience. So like, you know, I didn't drink until I became a mum then. So that was like 9 years later.
So like how important would you attribute that decision then of the non-drinking or not drinking to your formation, essentially?
Essential. I would never have found this spiritual connection with art or music or the land without being sober. I don't think I would have found it. I think I probably would have just, I don't know what would have happened. No idea. Do you know? No idea. I think you're kind of half asleep when you drink. You know, you have to search for something more when you're fully awake. You have to search for something more because if you're fully awake and you're an artist, then you have a lot of energy coming through you. So like I had to do stuff with the energy. I had to create. I had to go swimming. I had to go fishing. I was managing a restaurant as well at one point, as well as doing all these things. And I would run 2 miles after finishing work. You know, you have a lot of energy when you're sober. So yeah, foundation, absolute foundation, for sure. But like connecting to the land has really stood to me as well, because I would have been very allergic to the indoctrination, I suppose, of the Catholic Church and all that. Always felt a bit indifferent to the fact that there was only 2 females ever spoken about in the Bible when the priest would visit the primary school, and one was a prostitute and the other one was someone who had a baby who had never had sex. I couldn't understand this, that they were the only 2 examples of females. So I was always a bit, it was rubbing me up the wrong way. So, but I was missing the spirituality, like I was missing the connection. So so standing on the rocks in Doolin, having swam for an hour in the ocean and looking out at the Aran Islands and the sunset and maybe singing a tune by a fire was I met my God, So, and that has stood to me all the time, no matter what's happening, And I did a little experiment when I was in college, where every time I had this big audition, I would, well, not every time, because I was starting to lose. At the beginning when I went in, I was getting loads of auditions, and then it started to lag a bit. I probably became too confident.
Okay.
And then I would drive down to Clare and I would stand by the ocean and I would ground myself, and then I'd go back up and I'd do an audition, and I'd always get what I wanted when I did that. So I realised that is whatever it is that fills you, grounds you, connects you back to your ancestors, whatever it is that is your centre, your source, you've got to keep doing it. So, and I'm here now, I'm in Clare, there, it's on my doorstep. So
lovely. What was that experience of what you described as perhaps overconfidence? What was going on there? You were kind of on a roll, or lots of momentum?
Well, just to give you a bit of backstory, I suppose, I went back to study drama when I was 25. Probably always should have done this. So I'll go further back again. When I was doing my leaving cert, I'd applied for Trinity, for drama in Trinity. And at the time, the points were like, I don't know, were they 590 or something? So it was a really high point system. And I was definitely not studying enough to get those kind of points. And the audition came up, because it's half audition and half points or something like that. The audition came up and I was like, there's no point in me going because I won't get the points. And I remember my father saying, you should do it anyway. And I didn't, and I doubted myself. And that year was the first year in 12 years that the points came down to 350 and I got 355. So talk about the universe slapping you in the face, So yeah, that was definitely a turn. That was one of those sliding door moments where I did something I shouldn't have. I should have believed in myself a bit more and gone with it. But anyway, so when I was 25, I went back to drama, and I went to study in Dublin. And it was the first time I'd walked into a room full of people where I didn't feel different, or I didn't feel mad. I was like, this is actually a really comfortable space for me, and it's easy for me. So drama was really easy for me. Like, it was just coming at me and I understood it and could comprehend it. And the tutors were all encouraging me, and they all really liked me, and they would take me out and talk to me about what I'm doing and all the rest of it. And I think this happens a lot of artists, where when you find something and you're really good at it, right? And the ego starts to go, hello, I'm here and I'm going to inflate you now. And I think that we all need that first initial ego boost. It needs to burst in order for you to regrow as the artist that you become. So for me, that was where my ego went, and I was in Dublin, and before I knew it, I was wearing high-heeled shoes and I wasn't wearing my hiking boots anymore, and I was not visiting Clare, and then I started falling out with my tutors and my colleagues, and just everything just started getting a bit. I was removed from myself, and then I started losing parts and not getting them or whatever. And that's when I started going back down to Clare, reconnecting, going back up, really working on my art and my craft. And I got it back then with the slow grind and the understanding that it's from the bottom up, not from the top down. So that was me. That was how I visited my ego, was in Dublin. Yeah. When people started telling me I was great, I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm great, So that's well and truly gone now. Now it's just like, how much more work can I do, and can I improve on whatever I'm doing? So yeah, but I do think it's important that people have their egos burst, at some point in their artist journey,
When you talk about your craft, like at that point, what was your craft, or was it kind of multidisciplinary?
No, at that point, I had kind of left the music and I was really into acting. I was really into the theatre. The theatre, still to this day, is my absolute love. Like, being a mum though changes that, of course. So, but yeah, I was like, I'm going to act forever. This is me. I was just going to be an actress. But yeah, I was on tour in Germany and met this guy, and lo and behold, I'm going to be a mammy, and I couldn't figure out how do you go away and work on a set for 6 weeks with the baby? Like, I just couldn't figure it out. And so, but I was missing the art. I was missing some form of audience, or some form of communication between me and an audience. I suppose that's my art form. It's communication between me and an audience. Whatever way the art comes out, doesn't matter. It's all about the connection between me and the audience. So when I became a single mom then with this lovely baby, I started learning songs in Germany to keep my head, And it's very hard when you're a breastfeeding mom in a country without your family. I was in Germany. I was in a forest on my own, and all I was doing was learning Irish songs. On the ukulele of all things. My friend had given me this ukulele, and yeah, so I was just there singing Irish songs. And then it's funny that's the other thing about becoming a mom, when your time gets so little, that you don't have all this time to do whatever you want. And you have this maybe window of half an hour when they're asleep. Whatever you find yourself doing in that half hour is the thing you should be doing. That's what I started,
Yeah.
And I was picking up the ukulele, and I was writing songs, and I was singing songs, and it was always Irish music that kept coming back to me. Irish music, Irish songs, back to the home. And then one day I was outside with this little baby on my chest, and there was this crazy wind outside in Germany. And it's never windy in Germany. I didn't know this until the wind arrived one day, a year and a half in, And I was like, oh my God, I have to go back to Clare. I have to go home. I missed the wind. Isn't that absolutely magical? I just missed that whole, the power of the wind. So yeah. So I went back to Clare. That was it. And I started a little band. Ogie again was there. Ogie was there, brought me out to Egan's, and I'd sing a song for Patrick Egan there. And I sang a song for Patrick Egan, and then he was like, will you come every Friday and sing for us? I was like, I will. And then my friend Carla Began was living in Edinburgh with her small child, and I was like, Carla, come back, we'll start a band. And, and she did. She moved back to Clare as well. She's still here. And we started a little band there, and we went in every week. And the hardest audience, or the hardest medium I've ever worked, is the transient pub crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Period. I have learned so much. I did about 7 years of it. I've learned so much about people in those 7 years. Just that they can talk, they can walk by, they don't care about you, they can get involved sometimes. Sometimes they, you can be assaulted. It was amazing, and you have to still find your essence in that. It was the most amazing learning. It was the most amazing thing I've done with those 7 years doing bands. So yeah, so that's where I was.
It just strikes me as often how people talk about busking. Where the people often are quite indifferent to you, and you can be invisible or not.
Yeah, and do you take it personal, or learning okay, I'd love to sing one of my own songs now, not a cover. They are familiar, and then it's you get so nervous. But your nervous energy shuts them down as well. So you're just learning about this exchange between the artist and the audience. energy. That I'm fascinated with this space between the audience and ourselves. You know, that is just the most amazing thing ever.
Do you get withdrawals from that, like particularly say during the pandemic? And was there like a loss of that for you?
Yeah, oh, big time. The pandemic. So that was another big major point in my life, because I had been a single mom of 2 kids at that point. I was gigging like 3 to 5 nights a week, moving the kids from place to place. It was like a little job I was doing. And then the pandemic happened, and it was just me and them. And I was like, oh my God, I don't even know my own children. You know, they were like, what were they at that stage? They were like 5 and 3 or something, or maybe 4 and 2. No, 5 and 3. And so one, I fell in love with them for the first time, which is kind of a weird thing to admit, but it was a real like grounding of us as a team, as a family, that I realized what I had and how precious what I had was. I never gigged 5 nights a week again after that. I only choose like once a week at the very most. But yeah, it was all about the home then. And then what did I miss the most was the Irish sessions. I missed the Irish music. It always did something to me, Irish music, you know. So and I was ringing around my friends, and they were all the same. They were all freaking out. They'd no music, no outlets, nothing. So I started having dinner parties once a month, which turned into big parties once a month. And we did this thing where we created this kind of community trad bubble, where we would come to my kitchen for a session once a month. And then we'd isolate ourselves for 2 weeks, so that if anyone got sick, you know, it was within the group. And then we'd continue about our lives. And we continued to do this for like a year. And it was the most incredible experience of my life and of everybody's lives, I think, because there's something about the Irish when we're not allowed to do something that we really love doing it. So there was an element of that. It was a secret. We're in this gorgeous old cottage, you know, there was a stone floor. There was a dancing stone. People would come and dance. People would come and sing. Like, artists were just dying to share, and everyone was sharing. And the other thing is, when you're a gigging musician in County Clare, you never play with your friends, because everyone is gigging all the time. So this was the first time that all the musicians of North Clare, or whoever were in my clique at the time, or who weren't afraid or had no underlying health conditions, could come, and we all played together, and it was phenomenal. So that's what we did. That's what we did in the lockdown, and yeah, it has informed us all forever. And there is this collective of us now, and I know that like they're there forever. Something happened to us all that time, or this community was created. It was a really beautiful thing. It was beautiful. Yeah.
What do you think is different about Clare, or at least your part of Clare, than perhaps other parts of the country in terms of the arts or music?
Yeah, well, I can only speculate, because I've only lived in Clare or in Dublin, and I've lived in Kenny as well. But I definitely think the influence of the 1980s, the 70s and 80s in Doolin, where foreigners started to visit Doolin, opened the minds of the people around here, you know. And so Kilfenora would have a good connection. I'm originally from Kilfenora. I live in Kilfenora now, but I would have had lots of connection with Doolin. But like, all the people would transcend down to Doolin, and they'd be meeting all these foreigners, and it just opened their minds and opened possibility and opened travel. So I think that has informed the atmosphere here and how open we are to anybody coming in. You know, there's very few of my very close friends actually grew up here. You know, the artist community here is it's thriving, and there's so many different elements to it. You know, bring a writer tomorrow, or today I could bring like a graphics designer. There's cartoonists. There's there's so many different types. But then the landscape is so different. So you've got the burren, and then you have the cliffs, and then you have the underwater, and then you have the caving. You know, so the environment informs the artists as well. I do believe that, like accents. You know, so some place that's so diverse in its nature is people. You know, but it's definitely started there.
Yeah.
Although I'd say there was always a bit of wildness in Doolin, because going back even to the McNamara's and Dylan Thomas, and people always came to that. There's an energy there that artists have always been attracted to. I mean,
Yeah.
how could you not be? It's like straight off the Atlantic. I'm getting chills now just thinking about it. But the wind off the Atlantic Ocean, the cliffs, the seagulls, this, it's so sparse, it's open, it's just wild in itself. It definitely brings something out of it. Yeah.
So you're quite drawn to the elemental essence of wildness in general, aren't you?
Yeah.
You kind of get repelled at being constrained in for instance, I'm sure at times you're offered gigs or projects that maybe feel a bit stifling or something. That there feels like there has to be some kind of wild edge to. Is it an edginess like because Doolin's quite edgy in its geography?
Yeah, I definitely like a free flow with artists. Like when I'm with people, I like there to be space for creation. So I wouldn't like to be working where people are like, this is exactly what's going to happen, because not leaving any space for the Holy Spirit. I don't know, but you're not leaving space for this creative magic,
Yeah.
But no, once I'm connected to my wild, I don't care what way anybody is after that,
Yeah.
Once I'm grounded, like when I say wild and grounded, I'm not sure, but for me,
no, it actually is quite a good mix. It's kind of like the yin yang. It's you're in balance. You're rooted, but you're free and wild. Yeah.
Everyone has their environment that really sings to them.
Yeah.
Like ants or birds live in certain. But it's quite funny now because my partner, my fiance Neil, is from the Lakelands in Athlone. So that's really interesting because I grew up on the wild boats in Doolin, and there I am in Athlone with this man on a boat, and the ropes are like this thick. Here's the ropes, like back in our day, were like this size. And you're like, in that, and you're trying to grab these ropes and boats and stuff. So, I don't know if I'd be able to live in a lake or in calm place. I don't know. I can visit.
With their skinny ropes.
With their skinny ropes, and like he's like, oh, it's very rough today. I'm like, oh, really? Is it? Yeah. And this is very rough. I'd be more like drawing you in, like give me the sea in my face.
Yeah. Lovely. You also have it seems like you've got a strong interest in like socially engaged practice, if you could call it that, social issues, community issues. How did you come to that?
It's from my personal journey again, so that all started when was it? It might have been during the lockdown, actually, where they started to talk about closing off those Tune baby documents or all those mother and baby home documents again for another 30 years. And I was enraged. I was absolutely enraged. I couldn't believe that it was happening again, after already, many years have passed and these people would be dead by the time, the documents would be released again. And I was just so angry. And all the politicians were telling you this is the right thing to do. And I was a single mom, as well, sure. And I was just so angry. I didn't know what to do. And like what you do as an artist when you're angry, you just kind of wait for some kind of inspiration or see what comes out of you. But anger isn't always the best place to create from, you kind of have to be a bit more humble about it or something. Or for me anyway, I kind of wanted to find the light within the anger, because anger only breeds more anger. If you create art in anger, then if you listen to angry music, you do get angry, so I kind of wanted to find my peace with it. And I just woke up one morning with a vision in my head of the breastfeeding Madonna. And I was like, let's just take her back. Let's just take back the mother. Let's take back the breastfeeding Madonna. Because the juxtaposition there of like the mother and baby homes, but then they worship mother and Jesus, but they've separated that tie and that bond from women and their children. It just doesn't sit right at all. And so I wanted to take it back. And then I created that beautiful photo with Miriam and Hildy. in Kilmacree. I just rang up this photographer, Miriam, who I'd met a few times. And I said, do you want to do this with me? And she was like, absolutely. And we created this stunning photo. It just happened so naturally. It was just so nice in February, and it was freezing, and she's half naked, and we had hot water bottles on her back, you know. But it just touched so many women. And that it was just incredible that art can actually have a reaction, a positive reaction, but it can have a reaction, and it really, but it warmed people. It didn't make people angry. It made people feel loved, I suppose, and seen. And that, as an artist, to understand that one thing, something that you make can have that reaction was really special. And sure, then it was picked up by her story, and the rest, we just went on. We kept going on and on and on. We're still talking with her story. We did another illumination. We got the illuminations to the Falls Hotel. That was very exciting now, bringing them down to Clare, all these photos that I've created with Miriam, down to County Clare, and they were on the Falls Hotel. I was just like, wow, this is mad.
I've obviously, I've seen them, and Miriam, I should say her surname just for anyone. It's Riand, isn't it? I may mispronounce it now, but Riand.
I'm probably
yeah. She was a guest of the Creative Souls of Clare podcast as well, if anyone wants to hear more from her. But it's projected onto Bunratty Castle and
Nunavut and Doolin, facing the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
Moment for me, yeah.
So that like takes the art to a whole nother level, because you're using building and place and landscape and
landscape, like you're healing whatever it is that needs to be healed right there on the spot, and just seeing things big like that is just it's really it's awesome, for want of a better word, you know. So that started the journey of like, right, art is integral, you know, like, and it can actually heal things. Like the amount, like when I wrote the essays for all those photos, if you need to do any of this anyway, it's on my website, like aineobrien.com. But when I wrote the essays and people read them, like I had women reaching out to me, kind of, you know, saying like, thank you so much, and that they didn't even realize they were feeling guilt or shame or any of these things, and that they felt like, so one woman said to me, she's like, I feel like my soul has been taken out. You've washed it and put it back into my body. And I just thought, that is just beautiful, you know, if I can do that for Irish.
Wow.
Really.
Wow. That's something else, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm raising girls, you know. I'm raising girls in this country. And I don't want them to feel shame or, you know, feel like they're different because, you know, they've two different dads and they're living in Clare with their mom who's an artist. And I don't want, you know, I want them to feel empowered by my art, not ashamed by my difference, you know. Yeah.
I think you did. Did you do some work with in Listed Varna with the Direct Vision Centre or around that? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I, because I love working with children, so I started going into the Direct Vision Centres and working with kids there, and that was class. Now, because I insisted on bringing my children, this is part of me bringing my kids to work, and going in there, and we did some art and we did some drama and we did some dancing. I was in there about 3 times, I think. Yeah. And they've since gone on now, and they're in that Spark video.
Okay, yeah. I should also explain to any listeners or viewers that aren't familiar with what most people will be, but a direct provision centre is accommodation, often inadequate accommodation for asylum seekers in Ireland, and often quite removed from the rest of society in terms of opportunities and inclusion in a way. I know like there's many positive examples of that happening, but what you're talking about is one of those positive examples, and you're referencing the Spark song in video. It's called Spark, isn't it?
Spark.
Yeah, it's called the Cabin Crew and the Liston Varna Crew. If anyone wants to look it up, Google that, and it went viral around the world.
One of my work was, I had worked with the girls, so it was lovely to see them.
You set the scene for
Hey, who knows?
Who knows?
I was the spark. The spark's the spark.
Well, we never know, you know, that's the thing.
You don't exactly, no more than me bumping into people or, you know, life-changing people. But yeah, so that that was hard now. I found that really hard, to look at it from the outside and to go in there. And the other thing that's kind of funny as an artist, you get paid to go into someplace for 2 weeks or for a week or even just a day. And then you walk away. Like that is really hard, and I tried to keep up the communication and, I like invited some of the girls to my girls' birthday parties and going back in there. But, then there's a huge cultural divide as well. And, it is very different. The cultures are very different. Like our birthday parties are very different to their birthday parties, for example. I'm talking about mostly African girls now, who I was working with from loads of different countries in Africa, but they all seem to have the similar princess thing for birthdays where they dress in these ball gowns. The kids are in basic ball gowns with it's just all this beauty, whereas I picked them up and I brought them to a forest, in the ball gowns, and I was like, oh dear, right, so there's a bit of bit of a crossover there, but yeah, no, the one in Listonbar, they're so lucky in Listonbar now. I mean, the woman who's running the place there, Mel White, yeah, she's doing a great job, but there was just two things I noticed about direct provision. One was that the men are rarely around, and anytime I see them, they're very depressed. And the women are all bundled in together, all these different cultures. It's just the kids are fine, I think. The kids are fine. They're in schools. They're integrated into communities, but it's the adults that are struggling. Because how would you have a sense of pride in yourself if you're just living out of a hotel room, and you can't provide for your family, And then the other thing is as well is they just pluck you out then and put you somewhere else. So the girls that we had become friendly with, my girls became friendly with someone, then they were just moved to Cavan or someplace.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think obviously the standards vary around the country, but I do think in years to come it'll be one of those things we look back on as a form of institutionalization, and there'll be inquiries and reports and
absolutely. Oh my God, this is the thing. Then as an artist, you get really guilty. So here was I trying to heal the guilt and shame of these mother and baby homes, and then this is happening today, and I'm not dealing with the present. So it can be very. You can get very guilty as when you're trying to be a political artist or you're trying to, affect change. I feel very guilty even about Palestine and, everything that's going on there. But it's kind of hard sometimes because you need space in order to take something in as well.
Yeah.
And so there is that. And I just had a baby. So when they started bombing Palestine again there, I had just had a baby. I was breastfeeding an infant, so I just couldn't deal with what I was looking at,
Yeah.
I just couldn't deal with it. And then I was asked to do this. So she was 10 weeks old, and I was asked to do an invocation of the unseen, which was a gallery show using the photographs that myself and Miriam had created for her story, and to kind of evolve the art out from the 2D picture. So we created this whole gallery show around this, using the stories of the women that we'd photographed to inform the whole show with live music, and we were singing songs, and it was deeply emotional. But it was all about the past, and this is the same day that they did a huge bombing on Palestine, and there was artists coming to see the show who had just been at a protest. And they came in and the mood was so heavy. And I was like, oh my God, is this even relevant? Think about this, it's why, but then it's always relevant because it's always goes back to the mother and the child, And when the mother and the child are not protected and the next generation is not protected, then it is relevant, And we've done it before. We'll probably do it again, But so yeah, and it was, and they all came up to me afterwards as well, and they were like, "Thank you," They needed that. Sometimes we need to go in to come out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I want to explore more about that kind of thing. We'll move on now. Myself and Miriam, we're going to start exploring again with bringing the show out from the walls and into the presence. Because again, the interaction with the crowd, that feeling you get when someone sings a song and it's coming from that really deep place, and you get the chills, or the audience you don't always get that from just a painting or just a picture. Sometimes there needs to be another element involved to kind of grow the feeling and grow the vibe and heighten it, and community. The more people that are having the same feeling at the same time makes it bigger, so I'm going to keep going with that now. And hopefully, we'll be able to move into more presence, of what's going on at the moment indoors. Watch this space.
Watch this space. Well, on that note, it's been an absolute pleasure. I feel like I've been on a whirlwind.
I know. We haven't even started. What are you talking about? Rewind.
We went here, there.
I have to say though, just before I go, that that for Electric Picnic this year, going back to the essence of what we did in the cottage during the lockdown, of finding each other and finding our native selves. I'm hosting a trad experience in Electric Picnic in the Cree area, and from 7:00 every evening. So bring your instruments. I hope this goes out before. Will it go out?
Well, you're putting me under pressure to get it out. But a certain amount of people might see it before then, and most people maybe will see or hear it after then. But so maybe just speak to the wider vision behind it, and for those that make it, go for it. But
on the back of Kilfenora Roadshow, which is a show that I'm designing at the moment, it's all about bringing trad back to us and reconnecting with us, the native us, which was inspired by the old show bands that used to go around to all the communities. And every night, every community hall, they were full, And I'm like, why is it so hard to get people to go to music gigs? And it's because maybe they're too cool. Maybe it's time to be not cool. Maybe it's time to go back to us and back to the agricultural selves that we are. Yeah. Bring a bit of comedy in, a bit of drama, a bit of story, a bit of dancing, actually variety show, because Irish people are variety people. And so this is my vision now, and I'm working on that this year, the Kilfenora Roadshow. So on the back of that, there'll be trad popping up anywhere. And we're off to Berlin as well in September.
Oh, fantastic.
Day 2 of our rehearsal, and this random guy just walked in and he was like, "Can I watch?" And I'm looking for acts for Berlin for an Irish music thing. And I was like, what is going on? We're in Kilfenora.
Yeah, I mean, just the minute you describe that, it sounds like you're speaking to a big need there.
Yeah, big time. Just, and the odd show band songs coming in. It is great crack. And so that's in development at the moment. So I hope by next year now, you'll see us all over the place.
Lovely. Thanks, Áine. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, and best of luck with it all as well.
Good. Margaret O'Connor's that.
Great. Thank you.